I never watched it, but it is a good sense. Well, yeah, I see everybody watching it. Yeah.
It's like
My position but yeah.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Student Senate. Just as a brief note before we begin, help me help you. If you are a member of the Senate and I don't call on you, I might not be able to see you because of the amount of people we have in here. So just, like, I don't know, say something so that I can help find you a little better. But we'll begin with a prayer in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Today, again, I'm going to pray for peace in Ukraine amid those rising tensions. So, God of infinite mercy and goodness, we pray to you today for peace. You constantly remind us that peacemakers are blessed, for they shall be called children of God. May your voice resound in the hearts of all as you call us to follow the path of reconciliation and peace, and to be merciful as you are merciful. We pray to you for the people of Ukraine who are experiencing conflict, casualties, and death. Bless world leaders with the wisdom, compassion, and humility needed to build a world of justice and solidarity, and to break down walls of hostility and division. To you we pray that peacemakers and civilians may never yield to discouragement and despair, but become heralds of new hope to one another in this challenging time. Grant eternal rest to the dead and quick recovering to the wounded. We pray through Christ our Lord. Amen. On to roll call. Our roll call question today is, what's your favorite section in a bookstore or library? Just, again, if you're a first-time proxy, we'll call the name of the person you're proxying for. Just say proxy. My favorite section is the here.
History.
Yes.
McLean, could you mute?
Daniel Scribner. Faith Woods.
Historical fiction.
Colin Meyer.
Proxy.
Abby Donahue.
Here in the travel books.
Colin Murray. Daniel Miranda Carrera.
Here, cooking.
Monica Berry.
Here, more Virginia Austin.
Monty Maffei.
Here in theology.
McLean Farrell.
Here on Zoom and the space with the table in the bookstore that you can do work.
Maddie Means. Proxy. Emma Exton. Proxy. Isabel Graham. Proxy. Cooper Scholl.
Proxy.
Ben Erler.
President, I'd say the fiction section always good, although one place that I used in the Hesburgh Library this year I had was micro.
Abraham Figueroa.
Here, constitutional law.
Madeline Costabigli.
I'm here. I will also say like nonfiction.
Mary Griffin.
Here, autobiography.
Kayla Walsh.
Here and history.
Christian Silver.
Here, I'd say sci-fi.
Brian Haynes.
Proxy.
Luke Blazer.
Here on Zoom, probably the history section.
Lizzie Martin.
Here on Zoom, the philosophy section.
Veronica Slevin. Here.
And I'd say like nature.
Elizabeth Gonzalez,
Here and the historical fiction romance.
Michael Jacob,
Here, historical nonfiction.
Zachary Cortez,
Here, history and travel.
Will Henry,
Here, sci-fi.
Mary DeVoe,
Here.
Martha Castellani,
Here.
James Brunette,
Here on Zoom, and I would go with history or like thrillers. Stephen King, like him a lot.
Johnny Toluca,
Here, and like the like Sports Illustrated magazine section.
I like the 8-4 Esper because it has all the art history books.
Jake Lowry,
Oh, Jake Lowry's here. He likes romance.
In like a general bookstore, I think I like the things with like all the like 101 facts or 365 facts. I just read those for like hours.
Maddie Suki, Thomas Davis,
Barnes and Noble members save
Alan Miller,
I usually like finding the darkest corner so I can do homework alone.
Madison Hewitt,
Probably fiction.
Nina Sullivan,
Thriller.
Kate McLaughlin,
I'm here on Zoom, also fiction.
Caroline Cameron,
I'm here on Zoom. I would say the clearance section in either a bookstore or our bookstore.
Avery Webb, David Holmes,
Here, I'd probably join the Isolated Spot Sport Club.
Daniel Lau, Mo Doyle,
Here, probably the coffee shop. That's my favorite part of a bookstore.
Thanks. Well, thank you all. Moving on to the minutes from last week. Are there any changes to the minutes that we should be aware of? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. Executive announcements. Do I go first or? Okay, cool. So the Hall of the Year grading signups is still open. Every Hall of the Year review board sort of requires 2 Residence Hall senators. I don't know, Caroline, if you have anything to add on that.
Yes. Okay. It's gonna be great, guys. Sign up. Super fun. Also, it should be really like a very low time commitment. If we get enough people, so sign up. I'll only like assign you for 3 presentations, which is an hour on either Saturday or Sunday. And then like there's an hour training on Friday. It's gonna be super easy. The training will go over like how do you grade it, because that should take some pressure off, because you know it's a weird process. But it's really fun because you get like the inside scoop on what the hall's been up to, their goals, and it goes towards Hall of the Year, so you can be a part of that. So please sign up, fill out the form.
Thank you, Caroline. And I'll, second that. It was so much fun to be part of these review boards. So please sign up. Next, we have the 2022-2023 Executive Cabinet applications that are open. And I think we're joined by the incoming Vice President. So yeah, if you have anything to say. Can you chat? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi guys. I want to get impeached for that. My name is Sophie. I am the incoming student body vice president. Hence why I've been joining you guys so I can figure out parliamentary procedure. I'm also currently the president of PETA. Patrick Lee is not here today, but we just wanted to invite you all to apply to the executive cabinet. So what that is, I assume you guys know a little bit more, but I'll run you through it anyway. It's a group of roughly 20 people that specialize in specific areas, and then they get essentially a bunch of like institutional support, interpersonal support, and funding to make their goals for those specific departments of reality. So you get to lead a team of a bunch of people. You are stuck with me and Patrick for the year, so that is something to note when applying. But we're gonna have a lot of fun. If you have any interest in applying, we would really love that. We are also opening up the chief of staff position, which is not always open to the student body, but we did make a promise that everything would be open. So here we are. And we do encourage people to apply regardless of if their leadership experience is in student government. So obviously most of you guys are in the Senate or proxying. But if you have strong leadership or proven gifts outside of student government, we really want to see those. Diversity of voices are really important to us. So yeah, please apply. It'll be in the minutes, and then applications close Sunday at midnight. So let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Sophie. Next, a reminder that the Inclusive Campus Survey is open and it will close on the 4th of March. So this is a survey conducted by the Office of Student Affairs and Oxford Strategic Planning and Institutional Research. The results of this survey have in the past been used by students and administrators to come to guide policy and programming, and the results that you give in this survey will continue to guide those decisions going forward. Each of you should have received a personal link to the survey in your email. Just let us know if you have any problems accessing it or if you didn't receive one, and we'll try to work with you to do that. A quick Senate apparel reminder. We have the sweatshirts in. So there are still some in the student government office next door. So any new members or members who weren't with us last week to get their sweatshirts, please come by and we'll get you in the Senate swag, I guess. And then we have a report on SO 212208. Will one of the authors, summarize this for the Senate?
Sure. Yeah. So last week, I believe it was last Thursday. Yes. David, myself, Alan, and then Clay was on Zoom. We sat down. You may recall a ways back we passed a resolution here on Zoom policies for classes, COVID protocols, and such. We're asking why students in quarantine isolation are not allowed to have Zoom link access. So this meeting was a result of that. We met with interim provost Christine Mazier and Dan Ruby in the main building, the provost office, kind of talk through the resolution, talk through what our rationale was, and kind of get some insight on what might be some potential legal roadblocks, potential logistical roadblocks from them implementing this technology to students in quarantine isolation. So the report I encourage you all to read. It gives a much more thorough summary of the meeting and the discussions we had. Overall, we found it to be a very good information gathering venture. It was a pretty good discussion with her. She was very open to hearing our concerns. She appreciated, as well as Father Dan, appreciated the work that we did. We called their attention to specific action items. We called their attention to the COVID-19 Foundation's website, how it was blank. And they promised that is not supposed to be the case, that they would either update it with a message indicating redirecting people to where they're supposed to go for accommodations, or they would update that. So that's something that we can monitor moving forward. One other thing we talked about, and Alan can speak to this a little more since he had some more background on this than David or I or McLean had, was conversations about resiliency planning moving forward and maybe using this technology in situations such as when, say, the university was closed for a day because of snow, and how those might be more frequent occurrences in the future, and wondering how technology might be ingrained to help ensure continuity of learning. That was something we kind of touched on and talked about. That also goes for COVID as well. And that is basically the summary of the meeting in that report. So I encourage you all to take a look at it if you want to learn more.
Thank you all for your work on that. I don't know if there's any immediate questions, or you can follow up with these authors after the Senate meeting today. I know we've got a lot to get to, so sorry, I'm kind of going quick. David, I'm going to ask if you have any information about the nomination for Student Union Awards.
Yeah, so those are due on March 1st at noon. So submit those as 3 awards. One is the O'Malley Award, which is for a professor. One is the Palumbo Award, which is for a student government, student union, et cetera. And one is the Irish Clover Award. It's actually 2 awards. One is for another student, and then one is for a staff, faculty, or other administrator. And that's called the Nancy J. Walsh Irish Clover Award in honor of Nancy. So you have any more questions, please let me know, but those will be open through March 1st.
And like the descriptions of those are all in the specific forms. We'll get into the links there. So great. Now to the mysterious Senate surprise. So
I'm going to interrupt you. I'm breaking all the rules.
no, please don't. This is a meeting which cannot happen.
We are just sing happy birthday to Maddie.
We don't need to. I'm standing firm with Maddie on this. We don't need to. Need is not the word there.
I specifically asked you to come to this.
I tried, Maddie. I tried.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Maddie. Happy birthday to you. To celebrate one, the end of Minu's term. Thank you for your service too. That's my birthday, and also Mardi Gras, which is coming up on Tuesday. I have a king cake and a number of other bakery, pastries next door. Please come by afterwards, and we can kind of have a little party, a little celebration. Dietary stuff, real quick. King cake has dairy, nuts, and gluten, but I've gotten gluten-free and vegan options through Insomnia Cookies. My mom also sent along bundt cakes. So, thank you, Dad and Mom, for the cakes. I'm sure they're watching. Yeah. Come by afterwards. It's gonna be fun. Last thing before I turn it over to Madison for a quick announcement is yes, we are very packed in today because we're joined by a number of fuelers. These are first-year leaders in development through the executive cabinet. Very happy to welcome you all here tonight, but just to brief you all on why we have so many people. So yeah, welcome. Next.
Yeah, so I think you all can see on the agenda, we have some orders of business coming up that may have more debate than we've had previously. So I just want everybody to remember to follow parliamentary procedure. So I would ask that you relay specific questions about wording until we move to debate. And I ask that you wait to speak in debate until Maddie calls on you. If you so choose, you can yield your time to someone else. If you are getting off topic, Maddie is allowed to tell you to get back on track. You have the ability to, okay, well, let me clarify. On the order for the referendum, you have the ability to close and move to a vote. On the actual order amending the Constitution, that cannot be voted on today. So don't make that motion. You can refer either of them to committee, or you can postpone either of them and move the debate to a future meeting. You can interrupt someone if you have an inquiry about and you can also set limits for debate time and individual speaking time. So for example, if you want the debate on the matter to be 30 minutes, that's a possibility. If you want individual speaking time to be 5 minutes, that's a possibility. Those are also just things I'm throwing out there. But also, regardless, we only have this room to the maximum at 7:30. But also we are supposed to end at 7. So a motion to cap the meeting at a certain time would also be smiled upon to make sure that we don't, go past, end up losing quorum and a whole slew of other issues. So, yeah. Just be respectful, wait for you to be called on.
Thank you, Matt. So moving into our business for today, we have 2 nominations, the first of which is for Judicial Council President. David, could you read that letter?
Yes. Members of the Student Senate, it is with great pleasure that I nominate Madison Nemeth for the position of Judicial Council President for the 2022-2023 term beginning April 1st, 2022. According to Article 12, Section 3A1 of the Constitution of the Undergraduate Student Body, Judicial Council President should be nominated before March 15th of each year by the outgoing Judicial Council President, approved by the outgoing Senate. A resident of South Bend, Indiana, Madison is a junior and a resident of Johnson Family Hall. Madison is double majoring in Africana Studies and Political Science and pursuing a minor in Education, Schooling, and Society. Throughout her time in the student union, Madison has exemplified both the depth and the breadth of experience. Madison's expertise on the Constitution, bylaws, and parliamentary codes is deeply impressive. She will undoubtedly be without equal in leading the student union on matters of interpretation and procedure over the course of the term. Furthermore, Madison has supplemented her traditional judicial knowledge with a variety of other experiences in the student union, having run for and served as hall senator, served on both the Department of Diversity and Inclusion and the Committee on the Constitution as a sophomore, and become an officer for the African Studies Club. Her experiences as a candidate, a club member, and a member of the legislative and executive branches give her perspectives that will enrich her ability to work across organizations as Judicial Council President. In working with Madison over the past year, I have come to admire her drive for improving the student union, her adaptability to rapidly changing circumstances, and the thoroughness, efficiency, and conviction of her constitutional interpretation. Her values represent the best of Judicial Council and the student union. I am confident that Madison's term will initiate productive constitutional reform, bolster the credibility of Judicial Council, and creatively engage the student body through elections and through advocacy. Madison is far more qualified than I was when I assumed office, and she has my highest recommendation and full endorsement to serve as my successor. I nominate Madison Nemeth for the position of Judicial Council President without reservation.
Thank you so much, David. Are there any questions for Madison on her nomination? Alan?
I have one. This is a very important question on Madison. Do you remember where you were like sitting up and watching?
The exact place. The gym. I don't know. The gym. I'll stick with the gym.
Any other questions for Madison on her nomination? Hearing none, is there a motion? Ben? Is there a second? All those in favor of ending questioning and moving to debate, please raise your hand. All opposed? All abstaining? We are now in debate. Are there any points of debate on the nomination of Madison Nemeth? Sorry, Alan.
Madison served as my deputy parliamentarian. That I was second David's statement that there really is no position. I'm lucky enough to say that I made the choice all the way through. So vote no. I'll leave it at that.
And everything that comes. Any other points of debate on Madison's nomination? Is there a motion? Ben?
Madison is excellent, and I don't think there's anyone need to debate this, and the motion to debate.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of ending debate and moving to a vote, please raise your hand. Or vote via Zoom. All those opposed? And all abstaining. Great. We're now in vote on the nomination of Madison Nemeth as Judicial Council President. All those in favor of approving her nomination, please raise your hand. All opposed? All abstaining? Like a swivel up here. The vote is unanimous. Yes, the nomination is successful. I'm sorry, I've lost my words. Congratulations. Next, we have the nomination for the incoming sub-executive director. Kate, would you be able to read that?
Yeah, I can. And Rachel's also on Zoom. She is just in London right now. Okay, so members of the Student Senate, I respectfully ask for your consideration in confirming Rachel Dorfner as the Student Union Board Executive Director for the 2022-23 academic year. Rachel's demonstrated that she has the experience, enthusiasm, and understanding of our mission required to excel in her role as executive director, and I have complete confidence that she'll faithfully fulfill her duties as outlined in Article 5, Section 3B of the Constitution. Rachel's participated in sub since her freshman year when she joined the organization as a first-year student union board member. Leveraging her experience in high school student government, Rachel was able to build on her leadership skills, learn the basics of event programming, and build connections with the other Phi Sub members. The next year, she was selected to lead Phi Sub as its committee chair. And even before her role officially began, Rachel was tasked with overcoming two challenges. The first being having to adapt to a new director of programming within the first few weeks of the semester. And the second, having to interview more than 100 Phi Sub candidates over the course of a week. So I'd say that both challenges were a testament to her organization, flexibility, time management skills. Those are three qualities that are necessary for the executive director position. As Rachel served as Phi Subcommittee Chair during the 2020-2021 academic year, these challenges were not the only ones that she had to overcome. Amidst the COVID-19 event restrictions and meeting capacity constraints, Rachel found ways to bring her committee closer together, despite the need to remain 6 feet apart. Her creativity, leadership, and mentorship are evident not only in the number of events that Phi Sub successfully executed, but also in the fact that many of her committee members went on to be in sub leadership roles the next year. This fall, Rachel's passion for programming was only made clearer in her role as Community Engagement Committee Chair. I'm constantly admiring her positivity and engaging with her committee throughout all of last semester. So I hope this letter of nomination assures you that Rachel is the compassionate, collaborative, and resilient leader best fit for the role of sub-executive director. I'm grateful to have had the opportunity to work with her and learn from her for the 3 years that I've been able to work with her in sub. And I'm even more encouraged by her goals for sub next year and her willingness to partner with other branches of the student union to see those objectives come to fruition. So thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Are there any questions for Rachel on her nomination? Alan?
Rachel, very important question. Where were you when Zane left One Direction?
I actually don't have a clue because I wasn't a One Direction fan. But...
That's the right answer.
That's the biggest reaction from anything we've done this year. Are there any further questions on Rachel's nomination? Abraham.
A motion to move out of questioning is debate.
Is there a second? Sorry. All those in favor of ending questioning and moving to debate, please raise your hand. All opposed? And all abstaining. We are now in debate on the nomination of Rachel Dorfner. Could you step out of the Zoom call for a second? Thank you. And Kate, we'll ask you to just send her a text when we're done with voting, if that's all right. So, point of debate on the nomination of Rachel Dorfner. Abraham.
I ask unanimous consent to move out of debate and to a vote.
Are there any objections? Hearing none, we so move. We're now in voting on the nomination. All those in favor of approving Rachel to sub-executive director, please raise your hand. All opposed? And all abstaining. So please let Rachel know the good news that she is the new sub-executive director.
I just texted her to rejoin, so hopefully, oh, she's rejoining.
Congratulations, Rachel.
Thank you.
Now, moving into general orders, we have SO 212207. In order to amend the jurisdiction of the election committee, I believe this is David or Madison. Would you read this order?
In order to amend the jurisdiction of the election committee, whereas the Constitution, Article 15, Section 1C states that all election rules and campaign are subject to university regulations as outlined in 2 law. As the election committee has interpreted Section 1C to give it jurisdiction over allegations that candidates have violated university policy, even when it finds that these violations do not in any way affect electoral campaigning. Precedent is attached. Whereas under Section 1C, the election committee could therefore publicly sanction and punish a student who is not yet 21 for drinking alcohol in their room, or a student who is not Catholic for failing to follow the Catholic Church's teachings on sexuality, because those individuals happen to be candidates in an election. Whereas the correct body to interpret such violations is the Office of Community Standards, not the election committee, which has expertise only in the interpretation of election regulations and is forced to publish the results of all violations under Article 12, Section 4 of the Constitution. Whereas candidates for elected office can still be held to community standards, even without the election committee's authority to interpret university policy, since good standing with the Office of Community Standards is required in Article 15, Section 1A for eligibility to hold office. Whereas the election committee should still maintain the authority to uphold the responsibilities of candidates, campaign in a manner consistent with the policies of the Student Activities Office, therefore be it ordered by the Student Senate of the University of Notre Dame du Lac. The Constitution of the undergraduate student body is hereby amended as follows, effective March 30th, 2022. Article 15, Section 1E3 is amended to read as follows. No candidate may petition or campaign outside the petition or campaigning period declared by the election committee. Petitioning and campaigning within the portion is allowed only in the basement on the first floor. Petitioning or campaigning within Duncan Student Center is allowed only on the first floor, with the exception of the radio station, WBFI, and other campus media outlets with pre-scheduled appointments only. The petitioning and campaigning may take place in or near any student meeting office or venues occupied by the student union, or any space that is funded by the Student Activities Office. No one may petition or campaign in any venue while occupying a class period exam or during the passing period directly before or after the leaving class venue. All petitioning and campaigning must adhere to all policies of the Student Activities Office. And Article 15, Section 1C is hereby repealed, and all subsections and references thereafter and thereafter.
Thank you. Are there any questions for David or Madison on this order? Abraham.
I ask for unanimous consent to move out of question and into debate.
Are there any objections? Hearing none, we so move. We're in debate on the order. Are there any points of debate on the amendment?
A couple things that might not be obvious at first glance. The reason it's effective March 30th is because we're not allowed to change election rules after petitioning is underway for an election. Currently, class council elections, March 30th falls between halls and off campus. And then a question for the Senate that might be answered by Mo is whether I've used the right wording in the last sentence of Article 15, Section 1E3 as amended to refer your policies.
I'm trying to get an answer on that.
Okay.
For the Senate, it's either policies of the Student Activities Office or it's Student Activities Policies. It's technically listed as the latter, so I just want to make sure that we're in line with how the wording needs to be if you decide to change. Yeah.
Are there points of debate to be had while we wait for that answer? Or is there a motion to table until we have that?
Motion to-
Oh,
Sorry.
Ron?
Motion to table.
Could you be more?
Motion to table the
order.
discussion until we have those answers.
Great. Is there a second to postpone for a short time? All right. We don't debate. All those in favor of postponing debate until we have the correct phrasing from the SAO advisor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hand. And all abstaining? The motion carries. The order is tabled. Moving into SO 212218, an order calling for a referendum regarding the adjustment of the methods of student union funds allocation. Could one of the authors read this for us?
In order calling for the referendum, for a referendum regarding the adjustment of the methods of student union funds allocation. Whereas Article 3, Section 3D of the Constitution of the undergraduate student body, the University of Notre Dame states that the Senate, quote, shall establish the fiscal policies of the student union, supervise the proper implementation of the policies. Whereas Article 16, Section 3B of the Constitution dictates that 40% of student union funds to be allocated annually by the Financial Management Board, FMB, must be made available to student clubs and organizations. Whereas Article 16, Section 3D of the Constitution dictates that 59% of student union funds to be allocated annually by FMB must be distributed among student union organizations. Whereas pursuant to Article 16, Section 2A of the Constitution, $95 of each undergraduate student's tuition is annually collected as student activities fees to fund the student union in the manner described above. Whereas Club Coordination Council President Maddie Tupy shared in the December 1, 2021 presentation to the Senate, CCC allocations to clubs typically cover, quote, no more than 15% of club projected expenses. Whereas the CCC creates a final adjusted request for each club by setting an absolute cap on the amount of money allocated to any given club, imposing an additional maximum allocation of 5 times the amount of money fundraised by that club, and deprioritizing portions of club requests that are not central to the club's mission through a tiering system. Whereas even after significantly cutting down on clubs' requests, the CCC still only has sufficient money to fund 50 to 60% of clubs' final list requests per year. Whereas, based on data, from the Office of the Student Union Treasurer, since the 2017-2018 student union term, an average of 80.66% of student union organization funding requests have been fulfilled through FMB allocations. Even though FMB does not impose any absolute caps, maxima tied to fundraising or tiering protocols. Whereas the above figure for student union organization funding requests fulfilled only varies by 0.3% if the fiscal years impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic are neglected. Whereas it is therefore apparent that student union organizations receive a far higher percentage of their allocation requests than clubs, even after club requests have been adjusted downwards. Whereas the percentage of final adjusted club requests that are fulfilled is taken to be 60%, equalizing this percentage with the percentage of student union organization requests fulfilled would require that 7% of the funds available for allocations are shifted from student union organizations to clubs. Such that student union organizations receive 50% of the funds and clubs receive 47%. Calculations being found. Starts on page 4. Whereas, given this data, it is the position of the co-sponsors of this order that it is prudent for the Senate to debate possible amendments to ensure thoroughness, equity, and clarity in the distribution of student union funds. Whereas it is the position of the co-sponsors of this order that the question of an amendment to the funding allocation method of the student union outlined in the Constitution should be presented to the undergraduate student body to gauge their opinion prior to the Senate taking any binding action on this matter, given that such an amendment would directly impact how students' activities fees are spent across the student union each year. Whereas Article 16, Section 3 of the Constitution grants the Senate the authority to, quote, gauge undergraduate student opinion on a certain issue by placing that issue in ballot form as a referendum item. Therefore, be it ordered by the Student Senate of the University of Notre Dame 1, that the opinion of the undergraduate student body shall be gauged via referendum on the matter of amending Article 16, Sections 3B and D of the Constitution to adjust student union funds allocation percent. 2, the referendum shall include the following question as it pertains to the proposed amendment to Article 16, Sections 3B and D. Currently, 40% of the funds available for allocation to student groups are allocated to clubs, while 59% of such funds are distributed among student union organizations. Senate, Executive Cabinet, Student Union Board, All Presidents Council, Club Coordination Council, Class Council, Off-Campus Council, Financial Management Board, and Judicial Council. Do you favor shifting up to 7% of funds of up to 7% of funds available for allocation from student union organizations and clubs? Yes, no, abstain. 3, the Judicial Council shall take swift action to conduct a referendum and report the results.
Thank you so much, Ben. We'll move into questions. Are there questions for the authors on this order?
Yes. Yes, so the correct interpretation is I would direct you to Article 16, Section 3D14, I believe it was. This is the provision that, let me make sure that's correct. Yeah, Article 16, Section 3D14. This is from page 39 to the top of page 40. So currently, the only way that the 59% number, the funds allocated to student union organizations can be shifted outside the student union are if the Senate approves of the particular procedure and FMB decides to enact it. The text doesn't specify an order. My interpretation would be that either order of that would be allowed. And so FMB would be able to, in theory, and has in the past, allocate some to clubs, particularly at winter allocation, because FMB bylaws impose an additional restriction that it can't be in spring allocation. And this would not be sufficient to address the concern because we're not trying to change the flexibility, we're only trying to change where the floor is. Trying to push up the floor, not change the flexibility once you're at the floor. Reason being, the composition of FMB is primarily dominated by student union orgs. There's one CCC member, and so that's not a very viable long-term way to ensure club funding is at that level.
Other questions for the authors?
How many clubs are currently self-sufficient? And if this were to pass, where would the money actually be going to? So the clubs that are not self-sufficient, what's their main composition?
Maddie, do you have that for IBOT? Well, I think it's like 36, right?
Yeah, so yeah, 36% clubs are self-sufficient.
What's the composition of clubs? Like, are they mainly like political clubs, or clubs, the ones that do request money?
That's across the board. All of the different
I'd like to say I also have that data, which we'll get to.
Other questions for the authors?
Article 16, Section 3D14.
Okay, thank you.
Would be helpful if I read that to any members who don't have the Constitution. Great. So 3D says the remaining 59% of available funds after the minimum paid to the special interest orgs and clubs shall be distributed among the following student union organizations. Then lists most of the student union or all of the student union organizations. It also includes transfer or first year orientation as a 13th possible source of funding, or I guess output of funding. And 14 says any other areas deemed appropriate by the Financial Management Board with the approval of the Student Senate. Is that clear to everybody? Are there points of inquiry relating to that text? Are there other questions for the authors? Thomas.
The J Council.
Yeah, if this were implemented, our plan is to include it on March 1st with class council and fall elections.
How would their
Yeah, so the ballot would go out through the judicial council all group listserv, which includes all students, since all students would be eligible to vote.
Do you think the question is fair as bias?
Yes, I mean, I'd be open to rewording the question. We've taken a lot of feedback in this because for the first change that we made was set the context at the top of the student union orgs, because a lot of people might not know what the student union is, but they know that their class council did acts for them, that their residence hall did lie for them. So that's the first thing that we did to try to make that fair. Perhaps we need to list clubs as well, but there's so many of them that I'm not really sure how to do. And then the wording is also used, the previous wording could have been interpreted to suggest that clubs are getting free money. This one makes it clear that it states the existing balance and that the shift would decrease student union board funding and increase club funding, so that it doesn't look like we're offering free lunch. If there are any other concerns, then I'd certainly be happy to talk about those.
Are there other questions for the authors? Anyone on Zoom that I'm missing? Abraham.
Motion to add a question into debate.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of ending questioning and moving to debate, please raise your hand. All opposed? And all abstaining? Okay. We're now in debate on the order. Ben.
Motion to cast speaking time for
Is there a second to limit individual speaking time to 2 minutes? All those.
Is it like 2 minutes? Like, is it, if I start talking 2 minutes and I'm done, and then I can get another 2 minutes again, or is it 2 minutes total in this entire debate?
You can get 2 minutes.
It's debatable if there's no other motion. Is there any points of debate on this motion? Abraham?
Yeah, we should not limit debate on this resolution. We've done that before. And I mean, the last resolution is fine, but on this specific resolution, there's just so much to cover on both sides. I think limiting it to 2 minutes just doesn't give adequate time to the members of the Senate who do have information on this to present their full information to the Senate.
I have information to share. It'll take me more than 2 minutes. I'm not voting.
Yes. So I think it's kind of just pointless for someone else to just see it.
That.
If that's the case, and that means that other people in the Senate want to hear what they have to say. So like by ceding their time, it would show that like we want, as a collective, we want at least one person.
Being in this body, debating this issue in the past, I would certainly recommend having some sort of for contact. So is the order amendable to the motion?
It sure is.
And just to clarify, is it a limit of 2 speaking times or?
Every time you are recognized by the chair, you will be given 2 minutes.
I would strongly suggest that.
Other points of debate or discussion on this motion? Are you proxying? Okay.
I assume I'm allowed as a pro.
Yes, yes, you are.
May I propose an amendment for that, to amend it to 5 minutes?
You can. Is there a second to the motion to amend the motion to a limit of 5 minutes?
Second.
All I think amendments. Yeah. So because there's another pending motion, we have to vote on this immediately. The motion is to amend the original motion to a limit of 5 minutes of speaking time. All those in favor of such an amendment, please raise your hand. Please raise them high and keep them up. 1, 2, 3. 4. People on Zoom, any votes there to approve? Okay, all. This is okay. All those opposed to the amendment, please raise your hand and keep them up. All abstaining from this vote? In my eyes, the motion has failed. The amendment has failed to the motion. We're now back in debate on the motion to limit speaking time to 2 minutes. Ben. I second Ben's motion. Great. All those in favor of moving out of debate and into a vote on the motion, please raise your hand. All opposed? And all abstaining. The motion to limit speaking time to 2 minutes is adopted. We're now in debate on the referendum, the order to have a referendum. Points of discussion and debate on this order. David.
Really quick, I would just remind you that we're not voting on the merits of moving 7% of funds. We're voting on the prudence of asking the students the question. It's just to collect the data point. So it's not about the ultimate decision.
So, like related to that. So to me, again, not on the merits of we're going to ask the students. It just seems somewhat ridiculous to ask the students. So I think there's like a complete misunderstanding of what student government is and what it provides for the students. And for my research, Hunter, your poll, there's a lot of really good information on it. If you want to elaborate, because I am kind of like looking at the stuff here, some general points of like that would relate to this is that in Hunter's report, it says 1.9% of students who are not involved with the student union have read the Constitution at all. So asking a student body, where 2% of them know what they're like, know what the student constitution entails and what they're voting on. It seems like a not very effective polling strategy. And around 20% were unaware, 80% were unaware of the existence of the student union. So again, 80% of the student body do not know the student union exists. I don't think we should ask them complicated and very large financial questions, because I think they are a very unqualified group to understand the situation.
Yes.
May I respond to that?
You may offer a debate to the Senate, not to an individual member.
Okay, my debate is, I do think that the data there stands for itself. That being said, I will say that the wording of this question is probably as good as it can get, listing each individual organization of the student union. My report did find that people were largely unaware to recognize what the student union is. But it is my professional opinion personally that the majority of students will be able to recognize aspects of that, including all presence. So I would say it's the best that I can do.
There is a principle in the Senate that those who have not spoken in the debate are recognized first.
Just to add on to Thomas's point, I completely agree. It's taken the authors and myself 2 weeks to fully understand the implications, and there's still multiple implications that we don't understand with this specific referendum and just the amendment in general. to send that to the entire student body who are unaware of how the entire implications work and the intricacies of this referendum. One, wouldn't provide accurate data, and then secondly, they would essentially be voting on a win. Like they don't understand the implications of moving 7% from student union organizations over to clubs, and how that actually affects club funding and how it impacts the budgets of the student union organizations and where that money is going to be coming from. If we want to debate it, we can completely debate it in here. I just don't see how sending out a referendum will actually add any significant value to our debate.
I just want to put out there, once we really get into like the details and into the numbers of this discussion, I think everyone in the Senate will figure out very, very quickly that this is an incredibly nuanced topic that we're talking about. Right now, I can tell you that no one in the Senate is ready to vote on the resolution, 100%. I think there are probably 3 people in the school right now that know the necessary information to come to a conclusion about this decision. And you guys will have that after about 2 weeks of discussion on this. It'll be this week and next week. When we put this out into the student body, and it's not because our student body is stupid, it's not because they don't follow student politics, it's because of the minutia of this specific topic. The value point, like that specific data point that we'll collect from this referendum will not be of any use in the end when we end up discussing. And that's because this is going to end up being a more like analytical decision than maybe some people are sort of anticipating. The way that it's worded, because I've talked to some people in my halls and like, hey, did you see, because we had the poll in our halls, like, hey, did you see? A lot of people were like, I really value clubs. I like clubs, so I want clubs to get more money. But like, that's so far from what this specific topic is. It's going to be essentially clubs versus class council. And I think my final point is like, in years past, this has been very sort of head to head. It's been the student union, the 59% versus the clubs, the 40%, and just back and forth about the money, the percentages. I think the goal for all of us this year is to sort of go through this together, a collaborative process. I talked to Ben for 2 hours. I talked to Maddie this morning, and talking to me, like I went through the data from CCC for 5 hours today. This is not something that should be left to the student body. And I'm not saying this because it benefits. Can I get 30 more seconds?
Oh
yeah, even 10 seconds.
I see my time.
All right. It's not something that should be left to the student body because this, again, like I said, it's an element. That was actually all I had to say. But, oh, great. That was not.
Yeah, I'd like to offer up just a point of, I guess, consideration here in terms of the way that the question is being asked, because it is so nuanced and because a lot of the student body doesn't know exactly how allocation works and exactly where the funding is coming from in different organizations and things like that. Asking the question in a form of, do you favor shifting up to 7% of funds, I feel is very leading. I think it's something that almost makes the decision for the student, especially for someone who's never considered the financial data before in terms of allocations. So just something that I'd like to offer up for consideration is potentially changing that question to should or something like that. Offering something that's less of a do you favor and more of a should we do this or should this happen? And then like I said, and I'll just echo what Paul said, that this issue is highly nuanced in the form of there's a lot of money at play here. 7% is a lot of money. So to think about how that will ripple effect down the student union organization, I think would be a decision that people should take into consideration and not take lightly.
Yeah.
May I ask if it is okay for students to have an input in something that they're funding? I mean, like if you take the student, you take like the student presidential elections, those are very nuanced things too. But I mean, I'm just saying, like, at what point are they able to have a say?
Yeah, I think we might be complicating a couple issues. One is whether to have a referendum, and one is the weight with which we should afford to. So there's a lot of data collection, right? We're getting data all the time, and I don't expect to be done anytime soon. We got data last week on FMB funding. We got data recently on CCC process of how they work. We got data today on surplus information that we're going to continue to probe. We're getting data in the future about club sizes, things like that. This is just asking to add one data point. And if you're opposed to what the student body thinks, then you should weigh it appropriately. The fact that it's complicated means that you should consider their decision in this way. We base this order on the premise that students value their clubs as much as the student union orgs, and therefore that the percent requested by clubs and student union orgs should be the same. If that's not true, if students value the student union more, then there should be a disparity. And I would favor not changing anything at all. This is a data point about public opinion to integrate with a whole bunch of other data points that are more analytic. And I'd be open to rewording the question if anyone thinks it confuses the distinction.
Are you?
I have a kind of great and then debate if that's okay. So where would this be going out? Like, would this be a poll by itself, or like in a Google form, or would it be going out with like class council elections?
The plan is throughout the class council elections, but if Senate prefers a different method of delivery, we can amend to simulate that.
Okay, I don't have an issue with sending it out to the student body as a whole. I do have an issue with putting it on class council because for 2023 and 2024, both of those tickets are running unopposed. And I feel like a lot of people might not vote for them in those classes because they're like, they're already gonna win. And as we can see with the presidential election, which is like the most important, or that's how people see it, we had only like, what, 56% of the student population turnout. And that's like the largest we've had in 5 years, which is great, but I just feel like people, not that they don't care, but it's just not their like biggest interest. And as it's been like stated over and over again, it is a really nuanced issue. And I just feel like most of the student body is not like dying to be the ones to fix this.
Anyone who has not been recognized yet, I'll go with you first.
Hi, I know that we're in debate, but I had a question for the authors. Is that okay? Or
You can ask the Senate a question and I can
Okay.
recognize one.
okay. So my question was like from this survey, like from the authors that wrote it, like the results that we get, like if the students value them 50-50, do you want the funds to be then split 50-50? Is that like your hope?
Not that the funds would be split,
50?
but that the percent that a given club requests on average be the same as the percent that a student union gets what it requests.
I believe Jack Bertolo was speaking.
Hi, my name is Jack Bertolo, the executive controller for student government here in Miami. I just wanted to offer my opinion. This was an issue that came up during my term in Senate 2 years ago. I just want to like say like wholeheartedly, I completely agree with what's said about how nuanced of an issue this is. This was an issue that I tried to solve during my time in Senate, where I met with Jordan Isner, who was the past Club Foundation Council president, and it was Coyle, Patrick McGuire, who were the past student body presidents. And this issue was best served, in my mind, with regards to the merits of the student body, meeting in a committee that I formed with them to get like this discussion done with people who actually fully understood the issue. I completely agree that students should be asked what to do with their money. I think it's a very important thing, but the hard truth of it is, this is a very complicated, nuanced issue that even as someone who's been a part of the financial management board for the past year, which engages in this allocation, I still struggle to understand sometimes without like the help of my peers around me. So in terms of moving this to asking the overall student body, I think I agree with a lot of what's been said about how complicated this issue would be to fully understand and fully be like students have a full understanding of what they're actually voting on. So I think this is something that should probably most likely not be done in terms of like asking the student
body. Ben.
I wish to point out to make it clear that the results of this survey, what they be, are not binding in any sense. They're not binding in the sense that we will automatically have to withdraw our amendment. They're not binding in the sense that we will automatically have to vote our amendment. They are not binding in the sense that if the student body votes overwhelmingly yes, no, or middle ground on any certain venture, we can go the other way, or we can go a completely different direction. As David pointed out earlier, we're collecting more data on this issue. I'm approaching this issue very cautiously, very aware of the fact that this came up 2 years ago, 4 years ago, years before that, I'm sure. Which is why I think we want to take as much input as we can, and how much we weigh the student body's input. We can decide that at a later time. we can't do that until we have their input. I think the crux of this is, I didn't realize that $95 was actually what was being directed. I knew that students paid $95, but I didn't know that we as Senate could set a fiscal policy that means where that $95 goes. And I don't feel comfortable making any decision on this without at least the student body getting to have some say, whether or not they all show up, whether or not we decide to weigh the results of that referendum as heavily or not. But again, I just want to make the underlying point clear that this does not bind anything that we do moving forward. And we are open to rewording this question. I am very open to compromise.
Yeah, I just want to say that while it might not be binding, sure, I know it's important to gauge student body feedback. And you guys are adding data points to an argument that is heavily nuanced. That's fair. My fear for this issue is that I think that in terms of a student body-wide referendum on an issue that the majority of the student body has no idea about, this is going to become a heavily influential data point for no reason. I think that in the event it's either yes or no, either way, I think that we are approaching a danger of using a data point from people who don't really know what that data point is. For people who don't know where the money that is already allocated is going to. I think that gauging interest for an uninformed population would not be wise. And I'm not saying I don't want to hear student body input, but like Jack said, this issue came up 2 years ago, and the formation of some sort of like committee, board, whatever you want to call it, of students who know the ins and outs of clubs and organization funding might be a more wise decision.
Maddie, would you be comfortable yielding your time?
Hi, Gentry Corporation. I would like to maybe push back a little bit on the idea that the student union or the student body, unqualified or would struggle to grasp this question. Certainly, the way SMB, the way student union does all of its funding is very complicated, as it possibly should be when it comes to $1,000. But ultimately, this is a top level question about how much should clubs get from this pie, how much should other student organizations. And I think there's a certain, obviously, like there's complexities within funding, but that top line number, I believe, is very easy for students to understand, right? Like if CCC gets more money to allocate to clubs, that will result in clubs getting more money and doing more things, right? And student union, conversely, like will do less things, or vice versa, right? However the funding split happens, right? And like that's a trade-off that there's intricacies involved with, but ultimately, I think to be fully democratic with this $95 per student, it makes sense to get the opinion of the student body. And I think they're
I don't think you've been recognized before.
Yeah, I view the issue a little differently. I'm gonna bring that up in the other, but I want to see my time with the whole Christmas service.
Oh, I forgot what I was going to say now. You went. Okay. Oh God, I came out. I understand where everyone's coming from, where it's like this is student money, so we need to have student input, and I'm like totally 100% in agreement. It's sort of it has to be student input with their money, with the information necessary to make an informed decision. And in my opinion, there are people that share this. There will never be an informed decision with a referendum. Now, I really want to go back to Jack's point where we can have a very large group of people, right? A very large group of student body members that can come to this decision with equal parts CCC representation, FMP representation, but there needs to be information, in-depth information, like not even an hour, like an hour and a half, 2 hours with the complexities, explaining to them like how it operates, the ramifications of certain decisions. Like this can't be, in my view, a referendum.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And then just to go back to the point that Will made earlier, like the question as it stands is very simple. That's not the problem that I have. The problem that I have is that the implications of the question are the ones that are very complex and very intricate. Like if you were to move the money from SU over to clubs, like how does that impact the SU? going back to Hunter's statistics, like most of the student body doesn't know what we do. So when it comes to funding the prom redo that currently Paul's doing for sophomore class council or hosting the coin concert that from S&P, all the students know that that's what the money is going towards. I don't see this question as it stands completely contextualizing the entire implications of the question.
May I make a motion for a hard cap on this meeting?
You may.
I suggest a time of 7:05.
Is there a second to the motion of ending our meeting at 7:05? This would be. Yeah, that's the thing. Okay. So are there any points of debate on the motion to limit our meeting to 7:05?
The typical cat 7, like isn't that?
Oh.
Okay. Let's do 7:05. So that's why we have the space until
7:30.
Yeah.
Reservation ends at 7:45. We have to at least start moving out at 7:30 because it takes a while. Sorry. Are there any further points of debate on Paul?
Do you think maybe like as a Senate, we could talk a little bit about the committee idea? Because I feel like that would
Paul, we're in debate on the motion to limit the meeting, not on the.
Oh, dude, what? Excuse me. I retract my point of debate.
Other points of debate? Is there a motion? Mike?
Motion to move to a vote.
Second.
All those in favor of ending debate and moving to a vote on the motion, please raise your hand. All opposing? And all abstaining. We are now in a vote on the motion to limit this meeting's end time to 7:05. All those in favor of adopting the motion, please raise your hand. All opposed? And all abstaining. The motion is adopted. Our meeting will end at 7:05. We are now back into the debate on SO on the order in front of us. Thomas.
So I have a couple points. First goes to Bates' point about the sample. What is the sample going to be? I don't think this sample is representative of the student body. It's going to be for essentially one election, which will be upcoming sophomore year election. It really will not include any senior perspectives, probably no juniors, probably no sophomores. It's also going to be placed potentially on a class council election. So you would think that the people voting in the class council election, where the referendum is probably going to be actually favored towards the class council. So the club issue, I don't think this is fair for you either. The time for a referendum has passed. That would be the student body election. That's passed, that's gone. I think actually, I'll take that back. The most reflective perspective of the student body is the people here, because each one of you are democratically elected. So to the democratically elected, or to the democratic point of we need a referendum, that's moot. All of you are, for the most part, democratically elected by your residence halls or your class. So we don't need to have this whole separate discussion. You can go back to your dorm and talk with your 200 or so residents, talk to them about this issue in a more minute manner, explain to them what does the CCC do, what does the class council do, what does sub do, and then get a poll. You can poll them, you can ask them, you bring that discussion back here. So I will yield, but I will then ask for someone to recognize me for another 2 minutes.
David.
I will talk and then recognize you for 2 minutes. I don't use my whole time, or not 2 minutes, the remainder of my time. So I would just point to the precedent from 2 years ago. We had a referendum about petition signatures. This is a procedural move that can be used by the Senate to consider a certain resolution by petitioning the student body within a couple of weeks. This is also a technical point. If you ask students about the petition initiative and referendum article of the Constitution, I guarantee you'll get blank stares. And yet, because it impacted students' voting power in the student union, it was given to the students with actually less context than is in this order. It was given in the student body election. I wouldn't be opposed to doing this referendum through a election other than class councils and halls. Approximately 90% of students are either in one of the class councils that's voting or in a hall. What that's worth to be fairly representative. If you want to achieve perfect representation, we could do that as well, but there is precedent. And again, that also illustrates the non-binding nature of this. In that referendum, they chose, the Senate ended up choosing a third path to deal with the issue. So I'll yield back to Thomas, whatever stuff.
To the referendum point, 2 years ago, I would say that how it ended up working out was the referendum was passed or was failed miserably by a vote of 80 to 20 or something failure. But because of one nitty-gritty issue that the Senate then addressed later on, small discussion, made an amendment that achieved the same purpose. So I would like to go back to Maddie's motion. I'd like to reconsider Maddie's motion last week, asking that this type of discussion goes to a committee that can talk about these issues more specifically, can have Senate input, that you all can go back to your halls, ask them what the deal is, and actually have the people who know this minute matters talk about it, because that's how this issue can be settled. No matter what the data point is for this, it's going to be not very helpful in the long run. What will be helpful is those who are aware.
I just would like to add that maybe I'm being extreme here, but whatever way the student body does feel about this, because I feel they are not qualified, don't know enough about what's going on to answer the question, because I've been involved with student government for 4 years now and like sort of know. I think it's more than just not helpful. It's like, I think this data point would be weighted so heavily because it would look like it's an accurate representation of what the student body wants. And because I believe the student body is not educated enough on this point, I think it would be more than unhelpful. I think it would be like a dangerous data point. Like it might be extreme, but I think it would actively move us away from what the student body actually makes.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with what Timmy's saying, but also I think that reconsidering using the senators to gauge public opinion would be kind of seeing out the purpose of this body, right? You guys are democratically elected within your halls. You guys have a responsibility to go and talk to your halls about things that are happening in the Senate, right? So those are your opportunities to present the information that you have. Talk about this issue with the people in your halls, and you can come back with feedback, right? And then if you want to proceed with a referendum vote or whatever it may be after that, I see no problems with that, because then the students will have the information that they need in order to make an accurate and informed decision, right? But using the Senate as it was intended, I think is something that needs to be considered here, because at the end of the day, like we have already talked about, there are very, very few people who understand the nuances and the minutiae of this issue, and you guys are some of them, right? I won't even say that everyone in this room knows exactly how this issue is going to play out in the future, exactly what goes on in the allocation, but I'd recommend potentially considering that as a course for consideration. Definitely you guys presenting to your halls and then bringing that feedback back. And then if you want to proceed with a referendum, I can recommend that.
Just a clarification for me, Thomas, did you make the motion to reconsider, or are you urging that?
If I can be recognized now, I think that.
Is there a second to reconsider the motion to move the
Point of order. I think that motion was on SO 21-22-19. We're on 18 right now. So when it rank rate, is that allowed?
So I believe that wouldn't be a motion to reconsider, but there could be a motion to refer it to a committee.
This one or next?
Both of them.
Bad. Sorry.
I think at this point, it's been made clear to me that there are two lines of argument here. The first being the referendum on this would not be the best data point. The referendum on this would be a waste of time, would not be a good venture. And I'd like to point out the majority of those individuals making that point are representing student union organizations. I recognize also the value of us as senators going to our halls and discussing this issue. I also recognize the value of collecting a data point that is non-binding, that does not lead to any loss for anybody here, not lead to any loss on the part of the student body. I also recognize that we're limited on time in this term. We have yet to even get to the merits of this amendment itself. Since it is clear to me that there are two lines of argument, I believe that the Senate is now well informed enough on this order of a referendum itself. Therefore, make the motion that we vote on this order.
Zach. Okay. There has been a second to the motion to end debate and move to a vote. All those in favor of ending debate and moving to a vote, please raise your hand. All those opposed? And all abstaining? The motion carries. We're now in vote on SO 20.
Can we do a, I forgot to ask about this, but can we do a closed ballot Google form vote to ensure an accurate count, especially with those on Zoom?
We have already prepared a closed ballot. Madison, will you add that to the agenda? The ballot is now in the agenda. Voting members, please cast your ballots. We'll allow voting to continue for another 2 or 3 minutes. Just to make sure everyone can open the form.
Question from Mo while we're waiting. Did you get that? Okay.
Thank you for asking.
Yes.
Student activities policies.
Point of inquiry while we're waiting, if Madison and I agree to amend that language, do we get to keep ComCom's approval on there? Or do we have to make the motion for an amendment?
Is anyone having trouble with the voting form? Okay.
Yeah, it's making me like verify myself to boxes, but
Okay.
Do you want
There you go. If you have a piece of paper, you can also submit your ballot. It might be quicker.
pleasure of not being able to vote.
Any other issues with the form? We're voting. Okay. We're just waiting for signatures. Good. Oh, okay. Will you read out the vote count?
So we have 29 total responses, 11 yes, 16 no, and 2 abstaining.
The order fails to meet the 2/3 voting threshold and is rejected. We will either move into discussion on the following order unless there is a motion to untable the previous order.
Motion to untable SR 21.07.
All those in favor of untabling the previous order, please raise your hand. All opposed and all abstaining. Thank you for sticking in with us. In order to amend the jurisdiction of the election committee, we have already read it to the Senate. So we can pass on to questioning. Are there any questions for David or Madison on the order now that the language has been amended? Is there a motion? Is there any objection to move to debate? Hearing none, we shall move. Are there any points of debate or discussion on the order? Is there any objection to ending debate and moving to a vote? Hearing none, we shall move. All those in favor of the approval of SO 212207, please raise your hand. All opposed? And all abstaining. The order passes. Ben.
Motion to table SO 212219 next week. Second.
There has been a second. Points of debate on the motion to table. Abraham?
Actually, can I rescind that second?
Okay.
Can I make a motion?
The motion has been seconded. We'll have to proceed. You may make a motion if it's above precedent, or it may be presidential. What's your motion?
Motion to send SO 212219 to our committee.
That actually is not more precedent than the postponement or the tabling. So we are now in debate on the motion to postpone this to another later date.
Point of inquiry. That entails there'll be discussion next week, which would not involve a vote. I'm sorry for not understanding that.
I will list on next week's agenda how it is listed this week. Okay. Yes.
From the debate as an author, I would oppose the vote next week. I think we're gonna have to come in after that.
Are there any other points of debate, or is there a motion to move to a vote? Ben? All those in, or is there a second? All those in favor of ending debate and moving to a vote, please raise your hand. All opposed? All abstaining. The discussion is postponed to next week. That was when you were postponing it to. Yes. Okay, just
the next time.
Great. In our new business, there are two statements in order to bestow emeritus status on myself and Thomas Davis for our time in judicial council. So very exciting stuff. So hopefully we'll be able to get through those next week. So any announcements? Yes.
Show Some Skin starts tomorrow. There's tomorrow, Friday, and Saturday. I don't know if it's on Sunday, but you can buy tickets online from Student Shop or through DPAC. I highly recommend.
Other announcement?
You said we be packed out at the door.
I think we need to buy them in advance.
Okay.
Quick update from 2 weeks ago. I have written an amendment to the Constitution dealing with student body initiatives. There's a very low turnout meeting, so if you didn't hear about that and you are interested in possibly sponsoring it, I'm not a part of the Senate. I'm a part of the University Policy Department, so there will need to be a sponsor, and we also like multiple sponsors. So, yeah, if you're interested in something dealing with the student body initiative, please reach out to me. I can get you a copy of the proposed amendment.
You, it might behoove you to get in touch with the Committee on the Constitution. Kate.
Yes. Okay. Acoustic Cafe this week, per usual. It's 9 to 11 to accommodate Jazz Fest, which is going till 8:30. Also, the movie King Richard is showing in Montgomery Auditorium downstairs. I know it was just in theaters and now it's on campus. Kind of crazy. On Friday and Saturday at 5:15 and 7:30. And last but not least, Sub Spring Concert, April 1st, Step-In Center. Stay tuned for who's coming. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Kate. Any other?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
training, great. Snacks in the office.
There's big bag in the office. I want to.
I ran out of stuff, so as long as I get one done.